January 14th, 1979. Tommy DeSimone got dressed in his best clothes. He kissed his mother goodbye. He borrowed $60 from his wife. He had no idea it was the last time he'd do any of those things. He was on his way to a ceremony, his induction into the Mafia. The thing he'd spent his entire life working toward, the recognition he'd killed for, bled for, and sacrificed everything for. He walked into that room. The chairs were empty. The room was silent, and the men waiting for him weren't there to make him. They were there to kill him. And here's the part nobody tells you. His own boss let it happen. Not because Tommy got caught. Not because he snitched. Not because the FBI turned him. But because the man who protected him for nearly a decade decided, coldly and quietly, that Tommy wasn't worth protecting anymore. This is the story of how the mob politics, personal betrayal, and a 9-year-old murder debt finally came due, and why Paul Vario's silence was more lethal than any bullet. Paul Vario didn't pick up a gun. He didn't make a call ordering Tommy's execution. He didn't go to the FBI. He didn't testify in any courtroom. What Paul Vario did was something far colder and far more calculated. He stopped saying no. And in the world of organized crime, when your boss stops saying no, you're already dead. If you know this story from Goodfellas, you think you know how Tommy DeSimone died. You don't. The movie gets the broad strokes right, but the real story is darker, more political, and built on a betrayal that started years before anyone pulled a trigger. If you want the full truth, stay with this, because, honestly, what you're about to hear is more ruthless than anything Martin Scorsese put on screen. And if you're new here, hit subscribe. This channel covers true crime, mob history, and real stories that Hollywood couldn't fully tell. To understand what happened to Tommy DeSimone, you first have to understand what Paul Vario actually was. 3 men beat Billy Bats to death. You saw in the film. 3 men buried the body. Real man. Paul Vario was born in 1914 in New York City. By the 1960s, he was a capo regime, a captain in the Lucchese crime family. He ran one of the most profitable crews in Brooklyn. Illegal gambling, loan sharking, extortion, labor racketeering at Kennedy Airport, burglary rings, murder contracts when necessary. His operations generated millions annually, and he did it without making headlines. No flashy suits, no tabloid interviews. Paul Vario was a builder, a strategist, a diplomat who understood that survival in the Mafia meant managing relationships as carefully as managing money. His control over Kennedy Airport was especially powerful. Airlines, cargo companies, freight forwarders, they all paid tribute to keep their operations running smoothly. It wasn't dramatic. It was just steady, reliable cash flowing upward through the Lucchese family structure. That's what made Vario valuable. He kept things quiet. In 1965, he brought in a kid named Tommy DeSimone. Tommy was 15. Some accounts say 19, depending on the source. Big, powerfully built, hot-tempered, and violent. Tommy's family was already deep in the life. His brothers Robert and Anthony were Gambino associates. His grandfather had been a mob boss in Los Angeles. His uncle ran the LA family in 1956. Crime wasn't a choice for Tommy. It was a birthright, and from the beginning, what Tommy had that most guys didn't was an absolute willingness to do whatever was necessary. You needed someone scared. Tommy scared them. You needed someone dead. Tommy killed them. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Between 1965 and 1979, Tommy was suspected in at least 5 documented murders, possibly many more. But here's the problem with Tommy. He was a weapon you couldn't always control. And there's another problem the transcript doesn't mention, a crucial one. Tommy would never be made. His mother had Irish blood. Under traditional mafia rules, full Italian lineage was required for formal induction. Despite all the scores, all the murders, all the money he earned for Vario's crew, Tommy DeSimone would always be an outsider looking in. That fact burned at him, and it made him reckless. June 11th, 1970. A welcome home party for William "Billy Bats" Benvena. Billy was a made man in the Gambino crime family, a respected soldier who'd just done 6 years in prison on narcotics charges. The party was held at a nightclub in Queens. Henry Hill had a piece of the place. Wise guys from multiple families were there. Tommy DeSimone showed up. So did Jimmy Burke. So did Henry Hill. At some point during the night, Billy Bats said something to Tommy. The exact words are disputed. Some accounts say Billy told him to go get his shine box, a reference to when Tommy was a kid doing shoe shine work on the street, a reminder of where Tommy came from, said in front of other men. For Tommy, that was the unforgivable thing, public humiliation from a made man in front of the room. Tommy attacked Billy Bats right there. Jimmy Burke jumped in. They beat him badly, dragged him outside, put him in the trunk of Henry Hill's car, and drove to a location in Connecticut. Billy was still alive when they opened the trunk. Tommy stabbed him. Jimmy shot him. They buried the body, then had to dig it up 6 months later when the property was being developed, and move it to a second location. Billy Bats was gone. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Within 3 days, Paul Vario knew. Henry Hill told him, "You don't kill a made man from another family and keep it from your boss." So Vario knew Tommy had murdered a Gambino soldier without permission from anyone. That violated the fundamental law of the commission. The Gambinos had the right to demand Tommy's life. So here's the question that drives the entire next 9 years. Why didn't they take it immediately? Because Billy Bats, frankly, wasn't worth the conflict at that moment. He'd been in prison for 6 years. His crew had moved on. His rackets had been absorbed. Carlo Gambino, the boss, had bigger problems: the Colombo War, mounting law enforcement pressure, a fractured commission. Going to war with the Lucchese family over one aging returning soldier wasn't strategic. The Gambinos didn't forget. They just waited. And Paul Vario protected Tommy anyway, for 8 years. Now, here's where things get significantly worse. Tommy DeSimone killed Ronald "Foxy" Jerothe, a Gambino associate, and the protege of a rising captain named John Gotti. Tommy had been dating Jerothe's sister. He beat her up. Jerothe threatened to kill him. So Tommy went to Jerothe's apartment on December 18th, 1974, and shot him dead. 1 unsanctioned killing, then 2. For John Gotti, this was personal, not just protocol. Foxy Jerothe was someone Gotti had cared about like a brother, and this half-Irish associate, this outsider who couldn't even become a made man, had murdered him without consequence. Gotti didn't move immediately. He was smart. He was battling his reputation. He let the grievance accumulate. But he didn't forget either. By 1978, the situation had shifted dramatically. The Lufthansa heist in December of that year had brought massive heat down on the entire network. Jimmy Burke was eliminating witnesses. Law enforcement was closing in. Paul Vario was facing his own legal exposure. And then, and this is the detail most people miss, something personal happened. While Henry Hill was in prison, Tommy allegedly made a move on Karen Hill. According to Henry's own memoir, Tommy attacked her, and Paul Vario, who was reportedly in his own relationship with Karen at the time, found out. Whatever political calculation Vario had been running for 8 years suddenly became personal. According to the account Henry Hill would later give, Vario picked up the phone and called the Gambino family. He told them what they'd been waiting nearly a decade to hear. Tommy DeSimone killed Billy Bats. The gift he gave the Gambinos wasn't just information, it was permission. This is where people get divided, and I want your honest opinion on this in the comments. Was Paul Vario a traitor? Or was he making the only rational decision available to him? Think about it from his position. The Gambinos presented their case through proper channels, sit-downs, intermediaries, the diplomatic architecture of organized crime. Tommy had killed 2 Gambino-connected men, both unsanctioned, both violations of commission law. Vario had options. He could protect Tommy, but that meant conflict with the Gambinos, escalation to the commission, and almost certain defeat. The law was clear. The commission would side with the Gambinos, and Vario would have started a war over one associate who couldn't even be formally made. Or he could step aside. Quietly, no public announcement. Just remove its protection. Let the Gambinos know that if something happened to Tommy, the Lucchese family wouldn't retaliate. That was the signal. That was the green light. Paul Vario chose survival. He chose the family over the individual. He chose peace over personal loyalty. And honestly, strategically, he wasn't wrong. The decision avoided a war that would have gotten many innocent crew members killed. It maintained inter-family diplomacy. It kept the Lucchese operation intact, but it destroyed something else entirely. Every man in Vario's crew saw what happened. Henry Hill saw it. Jimmy Burke saw it. The unspoken message was received clearly. Your boss will give you up when it serves him. Some historians argue that Paul's betrayal of Tommy planted a seed in Henry Hill's mind. Why stay loyal to a family that doesn't stay loyal to you? When Henry flipped and became a government witness in 1980, maybe that calculation was already made. Be honest in the comments. Which side are you on? Was Vario a cold-blooded betrayer? Or was he making the only move that made sense? There's no middle ground here. January 1979. The Gambinos set their trap. They sent word to Tommy. He was going to be made, finally. After all the years. After all the blood. He was getting his butt in his formal induction into the family. Tommy believed it completely. This was everything he'd wanted his entire life. He put on his finest clothes. He kissed his mother goodbye. He borrowed $60 from his wife, Angela. He got in a car. What happened next is still disputed. Henry Hill maintained that John Gotti personally pulled the trigger. Mob informant Joseph Iannuzzi named Thomas Agro as the killer. A third account, from a figure named Bozzaroni, claims Jimmy Burke killed Tommy at his own home, covering Lufthansa heist loose ends as much as settling the Billy Bats debt. What is agreed upon? Tommy DeSimone walked into a room that was empty. No ceremony, no family, no button. Just men with guns. One shot, back of the head. He was 28 years old. His body was never found. His wife reported him missing on January 14, 1979, saying the last time she'd seen him, he'd borrowed $60 and never came back. He was declared legally dead in 1990. No funeral, no grave. He simply ceased to exist. Which is exactly what happens when your boss decides you're no longer worth protecting. Paul Vario never faced charges for his role in Tommy's death. He was convicted in 1984 on extortion charges related to his Kennedy Airport operations, with Henry Hill testifying against him. He was sentenced to 10 years and died in federal prison in 1988 of respiratory failure. He was 73. John Gotti became boss of the Gambino family in 1985. He died in prison in 2002. Jimmy Burke died in prison in 1996. Henry Hill died in 2012, still in witness protection. And Tommy DeSimone, the man Joe Pesci made famous, has no headstone, no grave, no documented resting place. The real lesson of this story isn't about the mafia. It's about the illusion of loyalty. Paul Vario let Tommy believe for 8 years that he was protected. He let Tommy kill, earn, and operate with full confidence that his boss had his back. And when the bill finally came due, Paul stepped aside. That's the real betrayal. Not the act, the illusion that came before it. The idea that loyalty meant something. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Tommy bring this on himself? Could Paul have found another way out? And if you've found this story hit different than the movie, give this video a like. It genuinely helps the channel reach people who care about real history, not just Hollywood versions of it. Tommy DeSimone's story didn't end with a movie credit. It ended in an empty room, with the people he trusted most having already made their calculations. If you want more stories like this, real mob history, real decisions, real consequences, the next video is right there. Watch it. See you on the other side.